be extremely brief. I've got to get back to my constituency. I've got 3 Father Christmases arriving in the next 3 hours. Let me just say that reference has been made to Mandela. I missed it last night, Councillor Terry Dix, who allegedly acquainted Mandela with Bin Laden and Al-Qaeda, and repeated that he would have supported the hanging of Nelson Mandela. Councillor Terry Dix was once an MP. He was an MP for my constituency. I replaced him. He was described, as you know, by my former colleague, who's no longer with us, Tony Banks, as a pig's bladder on a stick. The whole point of today is to discuss where we go from here, and that's the whole role of the People's Assembly. I don't want to repeat what's been said in terms of the analysis of the concerns that we have and the struggle that we're engaged in. So one of the things that we seem to lack is, at the moment, an element of confidence about what we're about and what's happening. And I just think today we need to leave here knowing that actually it is kicking off all over. Wherever you go, there is a struggle. Not reported, not in the main media, often not even reported beyond an individual constituency. So we have to create our own media, word of mouth, new technology, etc. And people are beginning to learn the lessons of all of those individual struggles. And it is absolutely remarkable. What happened this week in terms of UCU was a turnout in London which was phenomenal. A huge march, a rally, confident lecturers saying basically we've had enough. We're not putting up with it anymore, because what they're doing is they're actually deprofessionalising and de-skilling our role. They're entering us into 0 hours contracts and not just undermining our jobs, but undermining the potential that we have to give young people a decent education. That was a tremendous success. And as a result of that, students joined that demonstration. So it kicked off during the week. It wasn't just at ULU, it wasn't just at the Senate House, it was the occupation at Sussex as well, occupations right the way around the country. Students are on the march again, in solidarity with lecturers, but more importantly as well, in solidarity with workers on their campuses whose jobs are being privatised. Incredible solidarity. What also happened this week, as you know, only 2 weeks ago, Boris Johnson announced 1,000 jobs would be cut on London Underground. I was at the RMT executive on Monday. Do you honestly think Bob Crow's sitting back and allowing that to happen? This doesn't happen in his world. What's happening with RMT? They're now balloting to bring out the whole of the tube to ensure that Kevin has already mentioned the NUT. The NUT is involved in one of the bitterest struggles that we've seen in the history of that union. Time and time again, teachers have been called to come out and take industrial action. And time again, they're coming out and they're taking that action. And it's not easy, you know that as well as I do. It's not easy when, to be frank, you're only a couple of months' pay packets away from not being able to pay the mortgage, not being able to survive. But they keep coming out. But one of the messages that's coming out isn't just about wages and jobs, it's about our profession. And what this government and Gove has done is they've transformed education from what was a gift from one generation to another into a commodity that will be bought and sold by tuition fees or by the privatisation of our schools. So what the teachers are coming out for is not just about their jobs and their conditions and their wages, they're coming about the future of education in this country, the ability of our children to actually have a decent start in life. I think it's a courageous struggle that actually is demonstrated that you can mobilise. And that's, I think, given confidence to others. The probation service is currently under threat of privatisation, 70% of the jobs going into private companies. They're taking industrial action on 2 days. Yesterday, outside of Parliament, a group of them turned up, I believe there's about 100 of them, dressed as mobsters. Because they basically said, this is what will be on your streets if we privatise our jobs. A whistle was blown and they had a flash mob. The cops had nothing clue what was going on. But why have all these cons turned up outside con? But NACO now have made it very, very clear to the government that they will come out again to protect their jobs. But the Prison Officers Association, for whom it's illegal to strike, have made it clear, no matter what the legality of the situation, they will join them. Because what the POA does, very creatively, decide on strike days to have branch meetings which last the whole day, surprisingly. And you know the joke about this, I've said it enough times. When they first went out, I got the phone call, it was Jack Straw, who was the Home Secretary then, I got the phone call saying we're coming out. So I told Straw, they said tell Straw, and I told him, he said, well, it's illegal, so who's going to lock him up? Who's going to lock him up? It's kicking off all over, all the way over. And it isn't just trade unions, to be frank. It's people who've had enough. Had enough. And Lee has mentioned the immigration bill. The immigration bill is the most racist piece of legislation that we've seen in this country for maybe 30 years. And what it does, as Lee has exactly said, it introduces apartheid into this country, it introduces passports. You'll be able to be stopped in the street now. And the officers who stop you are able to use physical force as a result of this legislation. And ask, have you got your papers with you? And if you haven't got your papers with you, with physical force they can arrest you. So we're back into the situation as occurs in my constituency, into the dawn raids of white vans dragging families out of their houses. And where do they put them? They put them in my constituency, in Colnbrook and Harmansworth, where there's 1,000 people arrested at the moment, detained for no crime whatsoever, other than coming to this country to protect their human rights or to try and drag themselves and their families out of poverty. But it's kicking off all over, because this weekend down at Campsfield, there are people demonstrating outside Campsfield, calling for its closure. Because to be frank, if we're a civilised society, we should have open borders. We should be allowed to travel right the way across the globe, wherever we want. It should be a basic human right. It's kicking off all over. We've discussed at these meetings time and time again what's happening with regard to ATOS and the victimisation of people with disabilities. Well, for the first time in maybe 20 years, we've now got a disability movement. Disabled people on the march demonstrating, chaining their wheelchairs together, and yes, winning. 2 weeks ago, we won in the courts against the government on the Independent Living Fund, which they tried to abolish, and we stopped them. Only this week. Only this week, the comrade here has reminded me, only this week, they won in the courts, disabled people won in the courts against the work capability assessments, and we stopped them. That's what we do. So in every area, people are mobilising and fighting back. Linddsey has said about the Stop the War campaign. Last week's conference was an overwhelming success, but she's right. She's right. We may not have stopped Iraq, but we bloody well stopped Syria. Because they wanted to bomb, they wanted to invade, they wanted to back up Obama. Tragic what a failure he's been on this issue. But it's kicking off all over. Outside Parliament this week in a demonstration last weekend to close down Guantanamo Bay and bring back Shaker Armour to this country, to restore his rights and bring him back to his family. Again, people demonstrating on a scale we've not seen before. It's kicking off all over. But what do we need? It's been mentioned by Kevin and others. We're fighting individually at the moment. We're fighting individual battles. We're campaigning on the issues of bedroom tax, we're campaigning about ATOS, we're campaigning about wages, we're campaigning about 0 hours contracts. And I'll just give a plug, on January the 14th in the House of Commons, we're launching the campaign on fast food workers in this country. And we're going to invade on February the 15th Oxford Street and try and occupy virtually every fast food restaurant on that street. Because it's better for people to pay their taxes to deliver the service that we all need for providing food. But it's because we're fighting on individual campaigns that they can pick us off, and they know that. What was that quote by Bevan? The Tories don't talk about class war because they're too busy engaging in it. Well, that's what we're into, class war. And what's the lesson that we've learned over the last 2 centuries? How do we win? We win through coming together in solidarity. We're the many, they're the few. That's how we defeat these bastards. We come together in solidarity. So the role of the People's Assembly is exactly as it says on the lid. It's people coming together, assembling, and then discussing how we work together, how we bring these different struggles together. Kevin said it's right. There's a responsibility on each one of our shoulders now. It's not an individual struggle. Whenever there's a campaign, we have to support it and join it automatically. So when it's Barrett and the Max campaign, not campaigning against racism or campaigning against the escalation of detention in this country, we automatically support it. No quibble, get there. When it's an individual strike, it doesn't have to be our service, or we don't have to be in that particular union. We have to be on that picket line, on that demonstration. And when it's someone being evicted from a bedroom tax, we have to be there to prevent that eviction. When it's the DPAC and Black Triangle chaining their wheelchairs together in Oxford Street as they have done, we have to be there alongside them. And I think you've taught, in Lewisham in particular, you've taught the country a lesson. In solidarity, you did beat them. You did defeat them on the NHS campaign. Because in solidarity, you drove out the numbers, 15 to 20,000 people demonstrating, and they were petrified that that would infect other areas and it would bring down their NHS reforms altogether. So you've learned that lesson. I think what we've got to do is teach others about that. And as Kevin has said, that solidarity means what? It means, in terms of trade unions now, we can't tolerate individual general secretaries or bureaucracies saying to their members that actually we haven't got the confidence, our members won't come out if we call them out. Yes, they will. It's been demonstrated time and time again. But we also can't tolerate individual unions or the TUC refusing to organise coordinated action. If we want to really struggle against this government, it's exactly as Martin Walker and others have said, it isn't just marching together, it's striking together. And finally, that solidarity has to go into wider forms of coordinated action as well. The whole point of many of our movements now is to recognise parliamentary democracy doesn't work for us, elections aren't working for us. We're going to this next general election, and yes, we'll seek to campaign, we'll seek to get people in Parliament who may seek to represent us, but what's happening is elected dictatorships. So we have to actually recognise we've got to bring democracy back into the community, and that means the democracy of the streets. So when it comes to coordinated industrial action, we need coordinated street action as well. And that means, as we did a few weeks ago, if we have to, close off Parliament Square with thousands of people turning up, close off Westminster Bridge, get out into the streets in form of direct action, and demonstrate there's more to democracy than just a vote every 5 years. Democracy is about taking control of your own community. And that means industrial action combined with direct action. We used to call it insurrection. Now we're polite and say it's direct action. Let's get back to calling it what it is. It's insurrection. We want to bring this government down by whatever mechanism we want to down. And if that means urging unions to coordinate their action, let's do it. If that means calling every community organisation to demonstrate on the same day about their vast range of issues to bring this country to a standstill, let's start organising for it now. It needs absolute determination. It needs courage. But above all else, it needs solidarity. Solidarity.